Hey, NIO fam, happy weekend to you. It is the last weekend in August of 2025 as I record this, and I want to start on this screen for two reasons. First, I'll direct your attention to the bottom of the screen, the NIO Stock short-term stock price indicators that I've been using for a while, the trade volume, the FTDs, and the sentiment, those come into play, and I think they're going to come into play heading into the earnings, which will be Tuesday, September 2nd, before the market opens. That's the second thing I wanted to pull up here and let folks look, because what I decided to do was look back at the last three earnings, including the dates, and take a closer look, really kind of drill down on things like the trade volume within the month leading up to and then after each of these last three earnings. And then also look at what the FTDs look like within those kind of that 2 to 3 month window for each of those. And then also do a comparison with where we are and the data that we do have up to this next or upcoming second quarter earnings call, which is the one on September 2nd. Now, let's actually get into it. And so here's the first one. And I'm going to do these in order, starting at the end or the last part or the last one from 2024. So if you'll note over here, what I've tried to do is the earnings itself was on November 20th. And so this was the actual earnings date. But I've gone back to around October. This is the 18th here on the left-hand side. And then as far as almost to Christmas over here on the right. So, and the reason I wanted to do this was so that we could get a little bit, just a bite size, but a slightly bigger picture or view of things that were going on at that time. So with that, the high and low for the stock price on the actual date of earnings, which was right here, November 20th, the low was $4.31. The high was $4.84. Now, it is worth noting, and in line with the three short-term stock price indicators, the white lines on screen represent FTDs. And we did have spiking FTDs relative to the trade volume. Here's what I mean. During this window right here, which is about a 3-month window, right? There were only 2 days with over 100 million share volume on the daily side of things. And those 2 days represented the highs for NIO stock within this time frame. This is the almost 519 level that I've been watching. And we just recently, in this most recent uptrend, broke through it to the upside. And it doesn't look like we're anywhere near it, which makes me, I'm going to say I'm feeling a little bullish with what I think we could see for price action this upcoming week. But more on that in a little bit, because I want to move on to the next window. And so now we're moving up from that. What was the November 20th, 2024 earnings? The next one was March 21st of 2025. And that would sit right here. This is the date within that time frame. So the window that I've got here is from February 19th of 2025 through April 24th, right here on the right-hand side. And so the high and the low price for NIO stock on that day on March 21st would have been, the low was $4.36. The high was $4.62. And within this window, we actually had 5 days with 100 million shares of trade volume on the daily side of things. And that also corresponded with, again, that $5.19 level that I've been watching and talking about a little bit here, especially of late, because it was after this and the earnings that we had this deluge of FTDs come in, which brought the stock price to its most recent lows. In fact, the low here showing on screen is $3.02. So where are we with respect to that? We don't have the updated data. In fact, I think we're going to actually get it on September 2nd. So it will not be the most, will be the most updated data that we can get access to on the FTD side of things. So I will consider it a bit of an indicator. However, I still am more on the side of being bullish, and I'll explain that when we get to that, the window that I've got queued up for that. But now let's talk about the most recent earnings and what we saw. That would have been June 3rd of 2025. Now, June 3rd, 2025 is right here. And so the window that I've got on screen now runs from basically the beginning of May over here. This is May 1st, just off screen. This is the 2nd here. And then I went through about July 1st. So again, I'm trying to do these, roughly 3-month window, these snapshots, so we can see what things look like, not just directly before or after the earnings, but also in kind of the slightly bigger picture window. So here we are back at June 3rd. The high and low price for that day, which was the day they had earnings, that was the low was $3.35. The high was $3.60. And interestingly enough, and again, consistent with the short-term stock price indicators, we had 0 days. There was not one day within this 3-month window where 100 million shares of NIO stock was traded. The high was, is this the high? Nope, that wasn't. The high was actually, I didn't make a note, but I think it's right here. Yep, 72.69 million shares traded. The stock price did go up, and that was the day after earnings, which is kind of interesting. But because there were no days, 0 days with 100 million shares traded on the daily side of things, and as you'll note here, this is an over 3 million spike on the FTD side of things. This again, over 3 million and more around it. So obviously shorts, in my mind anyway, it looks pretty obvious looking back that they were in control of things. But here's where the trade volume actually has changed in the near term and within the uptrend that we're now seeing heading into this earnings. And I'll pull this screen a little bit further over, but because I wanted to actually show the recent uptrend, which I'm saying it looks like started around July 10th. I want to start with this data so you can see the price action and the move that NIO stock has made. Basically, we've had more days with 100 million shares traded just within this couple of month window than we had seen all in the first half of the year and late in last year in 2024. So all of these earnings, obviously there was a lot lower trade volume. And here's the most interesting thing. I said about the 519 level that I was watching, that price level. This was heading into where we saw NIO stock run right through that point or that level. And it came on 1, 2, 3, 4 days, consecutive trade days with 100 million shares traded. And NIO just shot right through it. And now it actually closed at, it looks like $6.38. So that's heading into what will be a new week in the US side of the markets. Singapore and Hong Kong will be open, but before and heading into NIO's earnings. However, because it'll be Labor Day, September 1st, and that's a Monday here in the US markets, we won't see any stock price action until pre-market heading into the pre-market earnings, which will be Tuesday, September 2nd. But and what I want to do here now is come over and just go to the 1 month leading up to what we'll see. So about August 2nd, we'll call it. Go back just a little bit more here. So this is August 1st here. And this would have been the roughly 30-day window heading into this earnings. Now, we don't have the data, including any data for FTDs in this month. So that is something that we'll have to wait and see. And I'll share it once I get it. We'll probably see that, like I said, on Tuesday, but probably not until after earnings. Here's why I'm bullish. Just keeping it really simple. Is this trade volume, if we see elevated trade volume continue, then it's just generally speaking a bullish sign for NIO stock. But also, I don't know if you can see down here, so I'll pull it up. The average 10-day volume for NIO is over 109 million shares traded, and the average 30-day is 80 million. Remember, one of those earnings, the high for that 3-month window around that earnings, we didn't have any days of 100, or excuse me, not even 80 million shares traded. So the fact that it does appear that sentiment is shifting, but along with that, we're getting the bigger trade volume. I just think that the FTDs will have to come in with a deluge and very concentrated, and probably will also have to see a drop off of trade volume if shorts want to get back in control of this thing. Also, I did want to mention this, and I posted and commented on this. I've done a video in the past where I pulled up Alibaba and NIO because I was just curious how many of the Sep shorts or big institutions had shorts or puts on both of these companies. And yes, they both have a number of market makers, which includes some suspicious characters, let's just call them. So when when Brendan put this post out, I had to respond, and I don't know if he pays any attention, probably not, and that's fine. But I did want to bring some awareness to it because Alibaba did have their earnings and they had huge trade volume and a big pop and move up with the stock price. Now, I just think this is really interesting. It's not exactly correlated to NIO stock price, and I generally don't compare them other than to see that things like the FTD data for Alibaba, which is a very profitable company and which is a company that has been doing share buybacks. And so this is my thought is perhaps the FTDs continue because the shorts know they can get away with it. And that's the way they've tried to keep the price pinned. But when they had the big volume spike right here on August 29th after earnings, look at the move that the stock price made. You had to close the previous trade day at $119.57, and that was only on 14.5 million shares traded. The next trade day, which was the earnings, they went for over 82 million shares traded, and it closed at $135. Now, I'm not predicting that we'll see that kind of a move with NIO stock, but I am recognizing, acknowledging, and wanting to bring the community, even more awareness with the reality that the trade volume, with low trade volume shorts, have a much easier time controlling the stock price. And it has, I don't want to say it's gotten away from them, but in the recent uptrend, as long as we are quite a bit above that $5.19 level, and we see continued elevated trade volume, especially if we see more days of 100 million shares or more. And by the way, I want to pull this up now and make one more point. NIO stock made the big move recently over and through the $5.19 level on these 4 days of bigger than 100 million share trade volume. But the last 3 trade days were all very low trade volume, and yet we still saw it remain above $6. So for me, that's why I'm sort of saying, okay, I'm bullish, and that doesn't mean we won't see some craziness. I think I've been watching NIO and part of the community and the stock price and seeing the craziness go on way too long to say that there won't be volatility. But generally speaking, I think it's going to be a bullish week for the stock, especially if we see bigger trade volume and that 519 level hold up. And it seems like, it would take quite a push down to get it down to that level, at least from what I'm seeing. But I wanted to nerd out and do kind of a unique take on the upcoming earnings. And so let me get this thing up and out as soon as possible. Because it's longer than 8 minutes, I will create chapters or timestamps to make it more convenient for those who want to jump around or reference back to certain things. So in any event, have a great day or night whenever you see this. I've still got more content that I hopefully can come back and make. And good thing is we've got a 3-day weekend, so I should be able to get at least one more video out before the trade day on Tuesday. So before earnings and the next US stock market trade day, I should say. So thanks for sticking around to the end. I know some of you did. I'll see y'all again very soon.